listening to the Art of Homeschooling podcast, where we help parents cultivate creativity and connection at home. I'm your host, Jean Miller, and here on this podcast, you'll find stories and inspiration to bring you the confidence you need to make homeschooling work for your family. Let's begin. If there's one thing I hear from homeschooling parents over and over again, it's this. I just wish I felt more confident. Maybe you've had this feeling too. You wonder if you're doing enough. You second guess your decisions. You compare yourself to other homeschoolers who seem to have it all figured out. You find yourself thinking that maybe if you just had the right curriculum, the perfect plan, or a few more years of experience, then you'd finally feel confident. But what if confidence isn't the starting point? What if confidence isn't something you find? What if confidence is something you create yourself, something you can build? I think many of us have the relationship backward. Many homeschooling parents I talk to believe confidence should come first. We believe once we feel confident, then we can take action. But in my experience, both as a homeschooling parent for 25 plus years and as a mentor to homeschoolers, confidence usually comes after the action. Confidence comes from taking action. I've heard this from many thought leaders as well. I think the original idea came from Dale Carnegie, a pioneer in the self-help movement, who said, quote, "Inaction breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage," end quote. And that's because confidence is evidence-based. Think about it for a moment. You're confident driving a car because you've driven thousands of times. You're confident making a favorite recipe because you've made it over and over again. You're confident in skills you've practiced because you've gathered evidence that you can do them. Homeschooling works the same way. The challenge is that homeschooling is such a personal endeavor. There isn't a scorecard at the end of the week. There isn't a supervisor telling you that you're doing a good job. Much of the evidence you're looking for is subtle and easy to miss. So today, I want to share a simple 3-step process that helps build genuine homeschool confidence. Not the kind that comes from having all the answers, but the kind that comes from trusting yourself, trusting your observations, and trusting the relationships you're building with your children. It's a simple cycle that you can repeat over and over again. Reflect, act, observe. This cycle creates confidence. And the beautiful thing is that every time you move through the cycle, you gather more confidence, and more evidence leads to more confidence. This is the episode about building homeschool confidence one step at a time. Step 1, reflect. Before we can take meaningful action, we need to notice what's actually happening. That's where reflection comes in. Reflection is often the missing step in homeschooling, I find. We move from one lesson, 1 week, 1 season, 1 year to the next without taking time to pause and ask what we're learning from the experience. I did a whole podcast episode on this just a few weeks ago about the importance of pausing to reflect. I'll be sure to link to episode 258, Don't End Your Homeschool Year Without Doing This, in the show notes for this episode, which you'll find at artofhomeschooling.com/episode 260. So confidence begins with paying attention, not with planning, not with researching, not with buying another curriculum, but with reflection. Here are just a few questions you could ask yourself. What's working right now? What feels hard? What is my child showing me that they need? What am I noticing about our rhythm? Where do I feel energized? And where do I feel stuck? Reflection helps us move from reaction to awareness. Without reflection, we repeat the same patterns. With reflection, we begin to see possibilities. Step 2, act. Reflection alone doesn't build confidence. Action does. It's the doing that counts. I often say that. The action doesn't need to be dramatic. In fact, small actions are often better, small tweaks based on what we've observed and what we think our children need next, such as changing one part of your daily rhythm, trying a new approach to math, starting a fresh read aloud, adding more outdoor time, simplifying your plans. The goal is not perfection. The goal is experimentation. You are gathering information. Homeschooling is a practice, not a performance. As Rudolf Steiner said to the very first teachers in that first Waldorf school back in 1919, he said, as teachers, we need to be like, quote, plumbers in the dark, end quote. That's the important thing to remember. Confidence is not something you have before you begin, or something that comes from making the right decision or buying the right curriculum or reading the right book. That's not how confidence works. Confidence is something you build through experience. And step 3, observe. This step is also skipped oftentimes by homeschoolers. We act immediately and move on. Instead, I invite you to observe, notice, pay attention. You can ask yourself these questions. What happened? How did my child respond? How did I respond? What felt easier? What felt harder? What could I adjust next time? Observation turns experience into learning, and then learning creates the confidence. Back when we started homeschooling, I had these 2 very active little boys, just 16 months apart, and they weren't really interested in sitting for very long or learning to read, and circle time often fell apart and ended with them wrestling on the floor. So in the early grades, we started our day outside, in the garden, walking the dog, or just playing. Then I would rein them back in with a snack before doing our read aloud and our main lesson book work. I had to keep lessons brief, but by observing them and their energy, I could make it work. This is how we fulfill on that Waldorf idea of looking at the children before us and bringing them what they need. Let's sum up how confidence actually grows. This is where you connect the 3 steps. Reflect, act, observe, then repeat. Every time you move through this cycle, you gather more information and insights. Every cycle teaches you something about your child, yourself, your family, your homeschool. And over time, things begin to shift. You stop looking outside yourself quite so much. You start trusting your observations. You start trusting your judgment. You start trusting your relationship with your child. That's confidence. Not certainty, not having all the answers, but trusting yourself enough to take the next step. And it all starts with just showing up. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this thought. Confidence is not certainty. Confidence doesn't mean you'll never have doubts. Confidence doesn't mean every lesson goes smoothly, every plan works perfectly, or every day always unfolds the way you had hoped. Confidence means trusting yourself enough to keep going. It means trusting that when something isn't working, you'll notice. It means trusting that you can make adjustments. It means trusting that you can learn alongside your children. And that kind of confidence is not built all at once. It's built gradually through experience, through reflection, action, and observation. And then through repeating the cycle again and again and again. Every time you pause to reflect, you gather information. Every time you take action, you learn something new. Every time you observe what happens, you collect evidence. And remember, confidence is evidence-based. The more evidence you gather from your own homeschooling experience, the less you'll need to rely on outside validation. You'll begin to trust your own judgment, your own observations, and your own relationship with your child. That's the kind of confidence that lasts. Confidence because you've tried things, you've learned, you've adjusted, and you've seen firsthand what works for your unique family. This is exactly what I help homeschoolers do, gain confidence in themselves. I don't sell a set curriculum. Instead, I help you create your own living, holistic homeschool. I empower you to show up, try things, and make tweaks along the way to help your children make progress on their learning journey. If you'd like support as you move through this confidence building process, I have 2 ways I can help you. I'd love to help you inside the Inspired at Home online community or at the in-person Taproot teacher training that takes place every August. One of the reasons our Inspired at Home members build their confidence is that they move through this cycle and share with others along the way. Members reflect in community, take action, and then come back to share what they're noticing and get fresh ideas. And at the Taproot teacher training, confidence doesn't come from hearing more theory. It comes from experiencing the lessons yourself, practicing hands-on learning, and reflecting on what you learn. Taproot helps you gain confidence quickly because it's an immersive weekend, 4 days with wonderful homeschooling mentors and fellow travelers on the homeschooling journey. I will put links to both of these opportunities in the show notes at artofhomeschooling.com/episode 260. Until next time, remember that homeschooling isn't about having all the answers. It's about staying curious, paying attention, and trusting the process. Reflect, act, observe. Your confidence will grow from there. Here's a sweet haiku from Katsushika Hokusai to encourage you in this process. I write, erase, rewrite, erase again, and then a poppy blooms. Keep growing and learning on your homeschooling journey, and don't forget, I believe in you. That's all for today, my friend. But here's what I want you to remember. Rather than perfection, let's focus on connection. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Art of Homeschooling podcast.